students. Myself Dr. Shirisha, Associate Professor from CSE Department, MLR Institute of Technology. In this session, we see what is STRUTS. So, we are going to discuss what is a STRUT framework and actually what is a framework, what are the uses of them, and what is STRUT and its advantages, disadvantages, features and everything. So, in the initialization process, the controller rectify a configuration file. Configuration file always it is stored in the form of .xml. So, you have to write, that is a specific format for writing a STRUT configuration file. You have a predefined tags that you have to bind your HTML model and view. So, for that this configuration file is very important. Used to deploy other control layer objects. If any that are required, we will add some other objects also. STRUT configuration is formed by these objects combined together. So, as I told you, your M and V, business logic and presentation logic, these two are nothing but M and V. So, these two are integrated with this configuration file which is .xml. So, that is about the initialization phase. STRUTS configuration defines among other things the action mappings for an application. Action mappings means you will save your file with some name. So, your file name, and you will save your web.xml with web.xml name, and also you give the name of your class as some name, class name. So, it has to extract all this, then configure. Okay. So, this has to know where are your class files. This also has to know where are your Java files and all. So, business logic also should be configured here. Presentation logic also should be configured here. For that, we need this action mappings. Okay. State controller servlet considers the action mappings and routes the HTML request. This action mapping, what it does, it tells this HTTP, okay, these files are here, just go and give them to this page. Okay, source and destination. Where is the source? Where is the destination? So, to where it has to send. So, this is HTTP who is doing this job. So, for this HTTP who is giving this information, your action mapping is giving the information. So, to the other components in the framework. Request is first delivered to an action, then to JSP. So, action mapping will take the request, send it to HTTP. In between, you may have the servlet container, or if you are using JSP, you may have JSP containers where it controls this configuration and sends the response to the destination. The mapping helps the controller to change the HTTP request into the application actions. So, mapping, what it does, whatever the controller is doing, so whatever the request that the HTTP request are sent, so the request will be sent as an application actions. Finally, the client will send a request. Whenever the client sends a request, what is the outcome that he receives? Obviously, it will be the application, right? So, application actions will be converted. So, this sort of conversion will be done by this mapping. The action objects can handle the request and response to the client. So, it takes the client server. So, it takes the request and send the responses. In between, who is acting? You have HTTP who is transporting. You have mappings, action mappings and action forms. It will take the request, send, action mapping converts it to application and send back the responses. And here is the request. So, this is what actually happens. In between, to handle these action forms and action mapping, what we are doing? We are using the servlet containers and JSP containers. And let me tell you what is the difference between servlet container and JSP container. Servlet container will take the application and whatever the changes if you wanted to do, again go to the code, do the changes, you should compile it, generate the class file, again import that class file into your web app folder and then you have to execute. So, this is one disadvantage we have in the servlet container. So, as it is taking time for rerunning and compiling, so what we do, we move to the JSPs where whatever the modifications you can do it directly in the program and no need to compile. It will directly affect the output or the application. So that is the reason we go with the JSP container. Okay, so action objects can access the application controller servlet and also accesses servlets method. So we have so many servlet methods like HTTP request, HTTP response methods, okay, HTTP servlet config. Okay, so like that we have so many interfaces and methods, so we need to know them. When delivering the control, the action objects can indirectly forward one or more share objects. Obviously, whenever you have this, you wanted to control something, there should be some sort of transmission from source to destination and destination to source, like servlet JSP container will take care or servlet container will take care. So including the Java beans by establishing them in the typical situations shared by the Java servlets. So when you are using the JSPs, we may include some beans also into that according to the requirement of the application. What is a STRUT framework? So it was originally created by Craig R. And McLennan, and then donated this Jakarta project to whom? Apache Software Foundation. What is ASF? ASF is Apache Software Foundation, where it gives you the server which is named as Apache Tomcat server. Apache Tomcat server. So what does this Apache Tomcat server will do? This is the server where the servlets can be run or your JSPs can be run. It is just a server. So who is giving this server? So Apache Software Foundation, that is ASF, is giving you this software. So where the struts also has been developed by this person, and he has again forwarded or moved that project as a Jakarta project in the ASF. STRUTS framework is an rich collection of Java libraries and can be broken down into major pieces. So you have base framework, JSP tag libraries, tiles, then validator plugins. So these are some of the frameworks that you have in STRUTS, different libraries that we have. So JSP tag libraries will be having in JSP's Java server pages, and JSP is a Java server page. So where we have different directives like page directory, we include tag lib directives. So those tag libraries we can include in this STRUTS also. Base framework, it provides a core MVC functionality and is comprised of building blocks of your application. Means whatever the MVC functionality has to be done, so that can be supported, that support can be given by this base framework. At the foundation, it is the controller servlet. As I told you, we have a controller servlet which is an action servlet, or action forms need to be converted to your action mappings, and action mapping should convert that to your Java objects. So all this process will be done by this action servlet. Action servlet, we call it as a controller by using the servlet. Rest of the base framework is comprised of base classes for your application and will extend several utility classes. Means you may use different classes on the top of this base class. So most prominent among the base classes are action and action form class. These two mostly we use because to send the request, okay, and to get the responses. And these two classes are used extensively in all the STRUTS application because the base is sending the request and getting the responses. Obviously, where we use this action and action form for doing this. So in all the STRUT applications, we have this action and action form classes. Action classes are used by action servlet to process a specific request. Action form classes are used to capture the data from HTML forms to be conduct of data back to the view layer for page generation. Means what? If whatever you are wanted to capture the data from the form, that means if whatever the data you are getting from the input, this is a form, right? Say name, first name, last name, okay, any other fields, okay, with submit button. So data from form means what? Whatever you are giving here, okay. So this is the data from the form. This can be captured by what? Action form. Not all the users will give the same input. When you have a registration form, I will give the separate input, the other user will give the separate input, but all the inputs has to be get stored. So that can be done by using this action form. to conduct the data back to the view layer. View layer means what? Suppose if I click on the submit button, whatever the input that you are giving here, I wanted to see in the output page. Then I need to get ABC and XYZ as first name and last name. So from here input page to the output page, this data has to be extracted and has to be sent. So for that you need this action form. Okay, then this page will get generated. There's a use of the base framework. Then JSP tag libraries, it comes packaged with several JSP tag libraries which provides the view logic in JSP. View means the presentation part. So enable JSP authors to use HTML like tags. All these JSP tag libraries will support HTML tags, like we have text tag, input tag, button tag, okay, input type equal to submit and cancel, okay, text area for giving multiple input. So all that will be supported by these tag libraries, okay, and this is defined by whom? Your Java class. And following is a list of libraries and their purpose. So HTML used to generate HTML forms that interact with the strut APIs. For using the strut frameworks, base frameworks and all, you need to know what are the interfaces that strut is providing. Whenever you are using those APIs, that is comes under the BL, business logic. When you wanted to give support of, for this business logic as a part of presentation, then you need this HTML forms. So bean is used to work with Java bean objects, such as accessing the bean values. You need beans which is supported by JSPs also. So you can separate this bean code with your HTML code, because this struts provide you the separation of code individually. So logic used to cleanly implement simple conditional logic. So you also have the logic libraries where conditional logic, what are the conditions you are giving, like expressions you are giving in JSPs, that will be supported by this logic. Nested means what? Data within the data or something like that. So used to allow arbitrary levels of nesting of HTML, bean, logic tags. So HTML, bean, logic, whatever you are using, if you want to nest it, data inside the data, then you need to work with this nested. These are the JSP tag libraries based on different listing of libraries: HTML, bean, logic and also nested. What is tiles plugin? Tiles means struts comes packaged. Again, here if you see whatever the frameworks that we have discussed, they are all packaged. Okay, you need to import those packages to use these plugins. With the tiles sub framework, tiles again is a sub framework. It's a JSP templating framework which facilitates the reuse of the presentation code. That means what? Whenever you have a code separation, if you wanted to reuse only the presentation part, so that can be done using this tile. Tiles means what? It's a part of code. Part of code which is affecting presentation, or part of code which is affecting your business logic. Okay. So with the tiles, JSP pages can be broken up into individual tiles or piece of code, then glued together, again merge them to create a cohesive page. One cohesive page means what? You are writing a presentation part as one tile, your business logic as one tile, but when you merge, what happens? In one page, the output can be seen. Output needs the business logic and also the presentation of the page, how you are going to make it visible for the users. So that can be done using this tiles. Similar to the design principles that the core struts is built on, tiles provides excellent reuse. So this is one of the feature of tiles. You can reuse the presentation part like HTML tags, or you can reuse the tags that are used in this view code. So tiles is a part as a for struts 1.1. It's a part of and packaged with core struts download, and prior to this, tiles was a third party add-on. So now it has been integrated. Previously it was just a plugin. If you download that plugin, then only it can affect. Otherwise it was not. Now it is more tightly integrated. So already it is integrated. So we need not tell as a plugin because it is already integrated. Validator plugin. This is one more framework that you have for struts, strut framework. Struts comes packaged, that we all know. So validator sub framework for performing data validation. So whatever the action form or action mapping you are doing, for that if you wanted to do the validation, so there you need this validator plugin. It provides a rich framework for providing data validation on both server and the client. So whenever the client is sending that request, then also you need validation. So for which we use what? Validation plugin. In the server side also, when it is sending back the responses, this is request. So when sending response also, you need some validation. So there also it provides. Mostly we require this validation only when you are taking the input from the client. Okay. Each validation is configured outside XML, and so that validation can be easily added to and removed. Okay. Being hard coded into the application means what? Whatever the validation you wanted to, that configuration you will do separately. If you wanted to do a business logic, then for that configuration you will add that to XML file. But outside the XML file, you need to configure this validation plugin code. Okay, so validator plugin was also third party previously, but it has since been included in the project and it was integrated. So we cannot say it as a plugin. We need not say it's a plugin, but we need not say that because it is already integrated. In the session, we have discussed about the Java framework. Okay, what is framework? What is a strut framework? And its advantages, disadvantages, features. Mainly working of the struts. It is very important to apply that in the application, and struts frameworks like this validator plugin, your tag libraries, base framework. Okay, all this you need to understand. Thank you all.